Before we start the video, a large thank you to Caden, Richard, Thibaut, I'm Ali, QRZ, Jaden, Jason, Ivan, and Chaotic for their support on Patreon. I hope you guys enjoy the video. And an immense thank you to Halo Burner for their continued and dedicated support to the channel this month on Patreon. It is greatly appreciated, my friend. You are a legend, and I hope you enjoy the video. Gentlemen, good day. How is everybody? So today we're going to start our level up system for real. We're going to begin by doing the UI, but before we jump in, let's actually take a look at Elden Ring's UI and look at what we're trying to accomplish. So on the screen now, if I've edited this correctly, you should see a level up UI screen, and we're going to go through this bit by bit. So as a whole, you can see here there are stats, and it looks like they can be changed, and then there are stats that are affected by your main levels. So for example, Vigor would affect your HP, Endurance would affect your stamina, etc., etc. So let's break this down. Let's go to the next picture here, and you can see here that when we have a stat to level up highlighted, you can see the two arrows appear next to the number, and there's two numbers here. There's what we're going to refer as your actual stat, and then there is what we're going to call in the video your projected stat. So your projected stat means this is what the stat is going to become after you've edited it. So you can see 13, and then the number to the right is 14 because this person has incremented it up +1. So there's a few things going on here. When we have a stat highlighted, we want to put a little highlight over the stat itself, optionally. And you also want to make these arrows appear to indicate that you're able to switch it. Now we're not able to go below our current stat. And if we go above the stat that we currently have and don't have the runes for it, we're not going to be able to hit confirm. You can see here that it's going to be, or it would be, dulled out if we couldn't hit it. So that's how we're going to set it up for actually going up and down and moving through these stats. We'll get into how we're going to do that when we get in the video. Next, we have, like I just said here, the current stat on the left side and the projected stat on the right side. This is true for all of the stats on this page. So again, basically, Elden Ring is a little bit different than your normal level up system. Normally, in a more simplistic system, you get XP, you pass an XP threshold, you level up. But Elden Ring, you hang on to all your XP, and then you can choose to spend however much of it you want to level up. So because of that, we have to make a formula to keep track of how much it's going to cost for each projected stat. And then finally, we have the stats affecting other stats. So this one's optional too. I might not do this in the tutorial because after, or I can if you guys want me to, but basically what I'm trying to say is if you know how to do the first part of the tutorial, you can do the second part with ease. The second part here would be basically as you edit your vigor, your projected vigor, you can then change your HP and your projected HP. You can see here in the light green arrow. Then as you change your endurance in the dark green arrow, you can change your endurance, and then your projected endurance would change. So it's going from 97 to 98 as this person's endurance goes from 13 to 14. So this just adds basically more information for the player, which is always good. But if you know how to do the first part, you can easily do the second part. So as to not waste too much time in the series, I can skip over this, but if you guys want me to do both in the video, let me know. Just wait until the first bit's over though, because then you'll decide if you're comfortable enough or not. So let's get started. All right, let's jump over to the project and let's open up our player UI manager prefab. And we're going to design some UI here. So I have the image of Elden Ring's UI open on my other monitor just as I do this. So I have a reference. Obviously, definitely get creative and make your own UI. If you can do it, don't copy other games. It's okay to take inspiration from stuff, obviously. And if the layout's nice, you can use it, but just, give it your own personal flair for sure. We're going to give it no flair as I'm going to make it what's referred to as a programmer UI. It's going to be very basic, but it's going to get the job done. So I'm just going to duplicate one of these old menus that I've had, and I'm going to basically just create a new level up manager. And, that's the size of my canvas. And in this window here, I'm just going to size appropriately. And you know what, now I'm thinking about it, we'll make it the full size of the screen. So we're going to stretch it by holding Alt, clicking that symbol, and then hitting the stretch icon. So I'm going to duplicate another window here. We're going to have a window within a window, if you will. And before I do that, actually, I'm going to get rid of this background object. And I'm going to copy the image from it and put it on the window object, just because I want the window to contain the image, because I'm going to make a few of these little windows. So we have our background window. If you want to name it that, you can. Untick raycast target. Apparently I didn't do that in the last video when I made this other menu, so I'm going to do that in a moment with the other one as well. And also I'm going to size two more menus here. So we're going to have our character's level and the runes that's going to cost and the runes that we're going to spend. So I'm going to call that the runes window. And then we're going to have our stats window, or you might want to call it levels window or attributes. Elden Ring calls it attributes. So you can call it that if you want. You might not want to call it stats because For example, Vigor is an attribute or a level, but it affects your HP stat. So if you want to kind of separate those by that name, that's how Elden Ring does it. So I'm going to call this attributes just to stay true to Elden Ring here. And you see you have a ruins window. Let's create an empty within this left panel. So I'm going to have 3 panels. I might have 4, but we'll try 3 first, and I'll size if I need to. I'll adjust the size if I need to. So we can do some simple math. Let's not make this stretch. Let's just center this. We can see that the width is 500. And this one, the width is also 500. Let's keep them the same. So if I get my calculator out, we could do 500. And I want 3 windows. We could divide that by 3. So 500 divided by 3 is equal to 166. Yes, 166. So let's do 166 on the width here, not 155. And then let's just duplicate that 2 more times. So left panel, middle panel, and right panel. And you'll know why I'm doing this in a moment. Don't worry, it'll become clear. Just bear with me for now. Some of you might already know. So then we're going to organize this automatically by putting a component on the parents called horizontal layout group, set to middle center, and we're not going to force expand the width, not that it matters because it's exactly the same size anyway. And here we go. So in the left panel now, we can get those text fields like character level, ruins, and ruins needed. So let's just say level, and we're going to do some sizing here. You can see we have a width of 166. Let's add a vertical layout group now onto the left panel. So we're organizing within the panels. So we have a horizontal in the main panel, then each individual panel will have a vertical layout group. So the text field, again, should be the same width as the actual box. It doesn't have to be, but it works out nicer if you do that. I'm going to call this level text. And then we can have another one here, and there's nothing here. So I'm going to keep it blank. I'm going to call it spacer or blank, whatever you want to call it, empty. This is basically just to keep an empty space if you're doing Elden Ring's design. And then we're going to do ruins held and ruins required. So ruins held, and you can see here I don't really have enough space. So I could do one of 2 things. I could auto size this. So I could do several things. I could auto size this, but then it doesn't look the same as the text field up here. It looks kind of ugly. If you auto size this one, it's even bigger, so it is kind of weird. I like keeping a consistent size. So you can set the auto size, but then put a maximum and a minimum to it. But I'm just for the sake of simplicity going to set this to 31 because that works out nicely. All right, cool. So next, let's do ruins needed. You can see this doesn't fit either. So what we can do now is we can take away size from one of our other panels and then add it to this one. Or we could just increase the menu size of the whole thing. I'm going to detract some size from our other panels because these other panels are just needed for some numbers and they don't require as much space. There we go. So 126. And if you want to make sure nothing ever leaks out too, you can. I encourage you to use auto size and then just set a maximum font size and a minimum. So here we go. Width is fine. So I'm going to need about 220 something here for the width that I want. So I'll just detract, we'll say 20 or 30 from this other panel and then add it on to my left panel. So 206 becomes 236, and then all these highlighted and the width becomes 236. I'm just showing you this because this is the workflow that I use. So that's why I'm going through all these little changes meticulously so you can see how I come to the sizings and stuff. Also, if you want the text to not touch the boxes here, just change it to centered and just put a space right at the beginning of the text field, just like so. So ruins held, for example, I'm just going to call this to spacer. Ruins held would become space ruins held, and then you put the text alignment here into the center instead. Now let's paste all these in the middle panel, and we're going to change them obviously because these are just numbers. So level text, this is going to be a variable, so I'm going to call it current level text, just so it's very clear. And I'll put a 1 here. You don't need to put a space after this one because it's far away from the edges of the box. And then ruins held becomes current ruins text or current ruins held text. You want to be super specific. We'll say 0. And then ruins needed becomes spacer because there's nothing there for this one. Now, make sure that you go to the organizer group and make sure it's set to the same thing. You can see it's kind of misaligned. I'll fix that in a moment. So let's add another vertical layout group and do the same thing on the right panel. And then let's unexpand the child force width and do this over here. And now it looks like it's pretty much the same. Cool. Now over here in the right panel, let's go and change this to projected level text. So this is the level you're going to be after you've started moving around some stats. Spacer, because there's nothing here. Ruins held becomes projected ruins held. So after you've paid the cost of so many levels, what does this number change to? Let's say you start with 10,000, you spend 2,000, this number becomes 8,000. And then ruins needed is the actual text. This is just going to show you the full amount of ruins you actually require for this transaction. So let's just change this to ruins needed text. This is going to be a variable we change to, or so ruins cost text, because the other one's called ruins needed. So this will be a variable we change. All right, cool. That looks good. Now I'm going to make sure that the width and all these matches the width of their parent object. Looks good. And that looks cool. All right, we can put these in the center. These don't need to be on the edge. And we can also center these other ones right here so they're not so close. Change the width to the width of their parents. And then I'm going to change the text to center, not to the left. And there we go. Looks a lot better already. Cool. All right, now we can do something else. I made this little arrow in Photoshop in like 5 seconds. It looks very terrible, but it will get the job done. I am going to make another middle panel. So I'll have the middle left and the middle right panel. I'm just going to expand this time the width of my ruins window. And then I'm going to expand my attributes window to match it. This is just so the UI looks uniform. I think that is important with some UI. You want to have at least some uniformity through color schemes or sizes. It just is way more pleasing to the eyes. So I'm going to make this middle panel 25 is not enough. We'll say 50. So I've increased the width of the main panel and the bottom panel here by 50 total now. And now inside of this, I'm going to add a UI image. I'm going to untick raycast target because it's not a raycast target. I'm going to make its width and height 50 by 50. And I'm going to drag in my UI arrow. It's not going to let me do that because I have to go and set it up first. So click it, and it's going to be single mode for sprite mode. It's going to be a UI sprite, apply. There we go. Now we can just duplicate this a bunch of times and just basically hide the images of the ones that are spacers. Just like that. Cool. All right. So this is going to be arrow, spacer, and then arrow. So untick this. Or sorry, no, this last one's a spacer, and the one before that is an arrow. So I'm going to reactivate that. Cool. All right. Now the even greater news is we can basically copy most of this stuff and then paste it down here in the attributes window. So copy everything right now, like literally everything, your middle left panel, middle right panel. Add a horizontal layer group, just like the one above here. Untick child force expand if you want, and then paste as child. Keep local transforms. Now let's go into the left panel and let's change this to vigor, and then we can just go down through our stats as we need them. So level text becomes vigor, and then the next one is it mind. I think it's mind. Yep, over here in the Elden Ring UI, it's mind, and then it will be endurance. And you can see what I'm doing. Just go down. I'm going to fast forward in a bit. Just watch me type out every single one of these. But basically go down through all the stats that you have and make a stat for these text fields. So we got vigor, mind, endurance, strength. And then on the left panel here, I'm going to keep duplicating these first. We got dexterity as well, intelligence, and then faith right after that. So strength becomes, there we go, dexterity, intelligence, faith. Now the middle left panel, we got all these stats. These are all going to turn to vigor stats, and then mind stat, endurance stat, and then strength stat. I'm going to text all those too because these are going to be variables we're going to change. So we got vigor stat text, mind stat text, endurance stat text, and these will be the current stats of your character when you open the level up screen. So if your vigor is 20, you pop open this menu, this will display 20. And then we can take these arrows and quite literally we can delete everything except for the top one and then duplicate it as many times as we need. And that's it. Very easy. And now for the last right panel, it's the same thing as the middle left panel. We just need a representation of a number here. So 1 for all these, but this is your projected stat. So when you try to change, we can just paste all these from the middle left panel, by the way, and just change the names of these from vigor stat to vigor projected stat. Basically, when you try to level up your projected stat, these are the numbers that are going to change before you confirm. And then when you confirm and leave the menu and come back, what was your projected stat now becomes your new base stat. All right, cool. That is basically it for how it's going to look with this side of the menu. So now let's go and add a player UI level up manager to this, like so. Now, I'm going to delete start and update functionality as is per tradition. I'm going to drop in my namespace, and I'm going to yoink the menu logic from another menu. I think we're at the point now in the series where we have enough menus, we can actually make a base class for this. So let's see. We have like 4 menus, I believe, and we always open, we always close, and we always have a close after fixed frame, so you don't do any like jumping or rolling when you close the menu. So yeah, we're gonna make a base class. We don't need to repeat all this code so much. General rule of thumb, if you're repeating something a whole lot, you can probably do it better. So the better thing in this class will be to create a base class and then have all these menus share these functions. So let's create a new C# script. So I believe it's called a new model behavior now in Unity 6, player UI menu. And this is going to act as the base class for everything that has a menu that can be opened or closed. So delete the start and update functionality, drop in your namespace as is per tradition. And now we're going to make all of our menus derive from this class. Let's go and copy open, close, and wait for close after frame and the menu variable, because every single menu we have currently uses this. So let's make it nice and neat. So we're going to make these virtual voids because on some menus you're going to want to do the base logic plus some other stuff. For example, on your equipment manager you want to open the menu, but also you want to load in all your stuff that you're currently wearing. And on the level up menu, you're going to want to open the menu, but also set all your stats. So say using systems collections, if it's not there for you when you're using a enumerator coroutine. And let's save this and let's go to our menus. We'll start with the character menu manager and make it derive from player UI menu. Now you're going to see this is going to turn green because it already exists. And let's change it from open character to open menu, close character to close menu. And because this is going to be applicable for all menus, not just the character menu. All right, that looks really good. Let's go over here now and save this, go to the character menu and delete everything that was there, and then make the player UI manager derive from the player UI menu. Now you're going to see this error, close character menu doesn't exist anymore, change it to close menu. Open character menu doesn't exist anymore, change it to open menu. That's it. Okay, let's go over to our player UI equipment manager. Let's make it derive from player UI menu. Same thing, guys. It's the exact same thing. You can see here we have more stuff though happening in Open Equipment Manager. So override your open menu. And if we go to the base open menu, you can see all we're doing is opening a menu and setting the menu window as open flag to true. So copy everything that's not that and paste it after the base in this new open menu. And then delete your old function because we don't need it. And the same thing for close. I think close, we don't need to do anything. Yeah, you just delete this close function because the base close function has everything we need. Save it, you're gonna get some errors. We'll worry about that in a minute. Go to the player's site of grace. Site of grace menu, same thing. We actually don't need anything here from open and close, so just delete them. And now we can go make this derive from player UI menu. And now under open teleport location menu, we just call close menu instead of close site of grace menu because that no longer exists. Let's go ahead and save that. Go to the teleport location menu. And I don't believe anything here from, okay, so for open, we need for check for unlock teleports. So override your open. First make it derive from the base class. Whoops, otherwise you can't override anything. So it derives from player UI menu, make it override the open menu function. I know I'm going very fast, guys, but I am trying to save time. I feel like I say it almost every video. So let's check for our teleports after we go with menu, and that's it. And let's just erase the close menu because the base class, it does the exact same thing. All right, so you're gonna get all these errors. Just go to the relevant things and change open whatever menu to open menu, and change close whatever menu to just close menu. And that just looks so much neater, and we don't need to repeat a function so many times. Because see, the more times you repeat a function and copy and paste the logic, the more likelihood of you making a mistake and changing something somewhere. So when you have one base function you can adjust that from, and affects all classes and functionality that shares that same logic, is way easier. Now, go to your UI, you can see you have these missing components here on your character menu manager. Just change them to the appropriate new open or close menu functions. Because if not, it's not going to work. So you can see here I have the equipment window, the inventory window, character info, and exit. Exit and equipment window are the ones that are broken right now. Just go ahead and change those to their appropriate new functions with on-click or on-press. Now, level up menu, drag in your menu game object variable. I'm just realizing now we have to go back to the player UI manager and add in our new level up manager variable. So hide an inspector because we don't need to see it. All right, after we type this in, we're going to call it on awake like the others. So we're simply going to say down here below the player UI loading screen manager, player UI level up manager is equal to get component in children because it is a child game object of our main player UI manager. And we're going to get it that way. Now under close all menus, let's add a player UI level up manager dot close menu. And we can save that now. And we're going to just go back out of Visual Studio. We're going to go back into Unity, go to your menu and just enable it here. Now, you can put on the character main menu if you want your character to level up from anywhere in the world, but if you want to do it like Elden Ring, of course, you want to put it under your Site of Grace menu. So I'm going to go to my Site of Grace menu. We're going to duplicate a button. We have travel locations here. Let's open the menu so we can see it, and we'll close the level up menu so we can actually get a better look at it here in a second. I'm just going to duplicate this button. I'm going to call it level up. I'm going to go here now and close my level up menu, open up the Site of Grace manager, and now we can see we have two buttons. So I'm going to call this one level up. And then you can see here the button right now, what you could do is just go over here and drag in level up manager and open up the menu. But then you also have to close this menu with another call for on click. So instead of doing that, Let's go to the player UI teleport location manager. Oh, I forgot to. Let's eradicate all of the menu variables on these menus because the base class has the menu variables, so we don't need to have it here twice. So go to your Site of Grace manager, your teleport manager, and your equipment manager. Anything that derives from player UI menu, basically. Just get rid of the menu variable because it's on the base class. So let's go over now to the player UI characters. Already got it done. Cool. Let's hop back over now into Unity and go to the Site of Grace manager, and you can see we have open teleport location menu. Let's duplicate that and let's make a new function for open level up menu. And again, the first thing you want to do is close the menu, so we have to do it with another on click function, and then call player UI manager.instance player UI level up manager.open menu. That's it. Now you can call this function here on the on click event. So this is going to become open level up menu. And now we can close this menu object and get back to the prefab, save it. And I don't like my Site of Grace, honestly. Now that I got a level, it looks really out of place. So I replaced it with this brazier. This is also from the same Polygon Dungeon set. So I'm just going to basically drag this into my prefab and override it. And I've changed the enabled effects to a fire particle. So just it fits the aesthetic of the level a lot more. Let's get out of that prototypey phase and make it look nice. I'm going to resize the sphere clutter so it's around it so you can interact with it from any side. Now if I go up to it, this just looks so much cooler. Oh, I forgot to make it an interactable, but also since the main collider, the trigger, is not in the game object, I have to add a rigid body, make it kinematic. So I'm going to save my prefab. Otherwise I wouldn't be able to interact with it. So I'm going to paste the rigid body here. It's kinematic. And now if I interact with this, boom, look at that. Way cooler. Fits the vibe of this level as well. Now let's go to the level up screen, and if we click this, it should open up our level up screen. It does. If we close it, we can just get out of this by pressing B, but we do a little backstep. So the reason why this is happening is because we're calling close menu, but basically on the same frame, we could call close menu after fixed frame here, but you'd have that problem with other menus too, because now if I do this, you can see we're still backstepping. This is because under close all menus, some menus are closing instantly, and on that same frame, we're disabling the has a menu window open flag. So you could call closed fixed frame on here, or you could just check to see if the menu is open before you close it. And now if we go into here, it should wait a frame before closing, and we shouldn't do a backstep. We're still doing a backstep. Okay, so over here in handle dodge input, future seb, it says future note, return do nothing if a menu or window is open. So we didn't have this back in the day. Now we can just simply say if player UI manager.instance.menu window is open, return and do nothing. So now on the same frame, if we press B, we're going to check to see if the menu window is open. And since we're waiting an extra frame to close it after we play that close menu function, this will turn to default. Dodge input will turn to false. So we'll turn to false, sorry, not default. And then we won't actually do a backstep. So let's just make sure we do this in game. And if I go to open up the menu, level up, and press B, yes, no backstep. So if you want to, you can just check in each individual manager if it's open and then run the function call or after a frame. But I'm just going to do it in all of them because if any of these menus open and you press B, you don't want to do a backstep. So it's just easier to, instead of saying close menu, when you close all menus, just close after a fixed frame. All right, guys, in the next episode, we're going to make it so we're going to load our stats and our ruins into the menu when we open it up, and we're going to be able to set projected stat levels. And if we got time to, we'll do the formula for actually deducting a cost, and we'll make it so all in that same video, once you set your stats and confirm, you will actually change your character's level. We'll also make a formula so it calculates your character's total level based on the amount of stats you have in each individual attribute. So thank you very much for being here once again. I hope you all have a very lovely weekend. A special thank you and shout out to my patrons. It is because of you this series keeps going. That's it for me. I will see you guys next week.